Welcome, Jenn Gomer. She is from CarePatrol of Denver. Welcome, Jen. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. So I want to jump into these questions here. And, a lot of times families wait until it's almost too late for making any sort of decisions or having conversations. Why do you feel so many families delay making long-term care decisions even when they know change is coming?
I think there's a couple reasons. I mean, the biggest is this is a really hard conversation to have with your family. They're like, I think she's doing okay. I don't think she wants to go anywhere. She doesn't want to hear my help. She doesn't, so I think the emotions of it's probably a big thing that slows people down. And I think people don't know what's out there. They don't know how much things cost. They assume it's too expensive. So it's a lot of just unknowns and kind of scary things that people don't want to address.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know when you say that waiting reduces options, what opportunities actually disappear over time?
Well, the elder care options available, a lot of it goes by how much care you need. So there's a lot of communities out there that you have to be pretty independent. You can't be needing additional support. So if you're needing care, I think you've eliminated those already. And you can have home care, but there's a lot of home care that does companion care and does not hands-on support. So if you need that hands-on support, you've eliminated that cheaper option. So part of it is just the options that are available for lower levels of care. The other thing to factor in is the availability of what's out there. A lot of buildings are filling up. So if you're saying, I want to be in a location that's between my brother and I and their church, and I wanted to be this, if you wait until the crisis and move then, sometimes that option isn't available because you didn't put yourself on that wait list. You didn't go look beforehand.
Yeah. So, could you walk us, Jen, through the typical progression of care from living independently to needing home care, assisted living, memory care, and eventually skilled nursing, and explain where the planning really makes the biggest difference?
I think when you live at home, initially the big part is, do you have that social connection? Do you have the ability to drive to the places you need to go for doctor's appointments, for grocery shopping, for attending your church? Are you able to continue being connected? So if you can stay home, and if your family or you have support system that can do that, you can stay home a little longer. But for some people, they don't have that support. Maybe their family lives far away. Maybe the church they chose is, kind of a long distance from them. Maybe they just don't have the energy to go that far. So the point of when you're at home and when you need to move is really different for each person. The situation, everyone's going to be in a different scenario. And sometimes you can add some home care, and there's a great place for home care when home care makes sense. If you're just needing a little bit of care, if you're needing 3 or 4 hours here and there, and if your family can support you the other times, or if you're really independent otherwise, then home care is great. And that does make sense. If you're needing more care than that, or you're to the point where we're worried about you falling, or we're worried about you forgetting meds, or we're worried about you leaving the stove on, or we're worried about you not really being able to get to where you need to go, then it can be hard to stay at home, even with home care, because that's a lot. Your home care can be very pricey if you're needing extended care. So I think for a lot of people, that's the point where they start looking to move. You can move before you need care for more of a social aspect, for more of, I'm wanting to stay active, I'm wanting to stay connected, I'm wanting to stay. I think a lot of people end up moving because they're needing the care, though. So then you're looking at levels of care. The next level after staying at home and getting some home care would be independent living, which offers that social connection, Usually offers meals, housekeeping, has transportation a lot of times included. So those are people who are pretty much independent. They're just trying to stay active, stay moving, stay in active, not just physically active, but also cognitively active, I'll call it. And, there's education seminars and there's sporting events where they all go to different, baseball or soccer or football games. And they, I think that's that next level of care that's just past living at home, would be independent living. The next level up would be assisted living, which is a big range. There's assisted livings that do just companion care and some medication and maybe some help in the shower, and that's it. And there's assisted livings that do almost nursing home level care. So the right building for you could depend on what kind of level of care you're needing, and you want to kind of match the kind of person you are with the level of care you're needing and the area of town you're needing and your finance. You need to match all those things to find that right place. So again, it's very different for each person. An assisted living can do very high levels of care, and each place is different of what level they provide. So some assisted livings will do lower levels of care, and then you'll need to move to a higher level sooner because they don't do higher levels of care. Other assisted livings, you can stay in that community through end of life because they can provide that level of service. If you're needing care to the point where you can't be left alone, or if you are exit seeking, or if you're having confusion to the point where you can be disruptive to the people around you, then you're looking at more of a memory care setting. And again, I think the big concept is you're matching where that person is to the care they're getting and the community that they're in. So you need to make sure they're matched to find that right spot for them. And you're not just matching level of care and location, you're matching like how active they are, what are some hobbies that they want to keep going. I mean, a lot of places have gardens, a lot of places have card groups, a lot of places have a lot of activities. Other places don't have activities because maybe that's not the kind of people that live there. They don't need that. Memory care, and again, a lot of people can stay through end of life in memory care. The big jump to skilled nursing is when you're needing IV medications, you're needing a nurse to do an assessment to evaluate what type of medications you need. You're not in Colorado, and I think it's a little different in every state. In Colorado, if you can't transfer and hold 30% of your weight, then you can no longer stay in assisted living. But 30% of your weight is not that much. So as long as you're trying to transfer and putting your feet down and making an effort, a lot of the times you could stay in assisted living. The other thing that people end up in skilled nursing for, and I think the elephant in the room for a lot of families is just the finances of it. If you're to the point where you don't have the capability to pay for care and you're using Medicaid or another state-funded program, then a lot of the times you end up in that skilled nursing setting. It's just the Medicaid assisted livings cannot provide the high level of care that private pay assisted livings can offer. So if you're needing significant level of care and Medicaid, you're using Medicaid to pay for your care, then you're going to be looking at skilled nursing.
Yeah. And, Jen, what are some of the financial consequences for families of waiting until the crisis occurs instead of planning ahead?
The more care you need, the more expensive it's going to be. So if you move in early on where you're not having a lot of care needs, then the prices are going to be lower. So again, in Colorado, you can do what we call a spend down, where you pay privately for a year or two, and then you could go on Medicaid and you stay where you moved. So if you only have X amount of funds, you may need to move before your care needs are that high, so that you can afford those 2 years of private pay before you go on Medicaid and then you can stay. If you wait or use your funds, on home care, or, you wait till your care needs are high, you might not have those funds to do a spend down, and you might not be able to afford that higher level of care. And then you will be looking at a skilled nursing and a Medicaid skilled nursing.
Yeah. Jen, would you share what the warning signs are that tell a family it's time to start planning, even if their loved one seems to be doing just fine today?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like everyone should be having this conversation. I, whether they're very active, to just make sure they're getting that support they need, and that you start. We have in CarePatrol, we have the 8 dimensions of wellness, and we look at these different levels, these different sections of your life, to make sure that you're being supported in every section. And if you start slipping in one of those, and maybe it's not physical needs, maybe it's she's not socially connected as much as she was, she's not having that spiritual connection she had, we like to say, having something to wake up in the morning and look forward to, like, what is it that drives, whether it's gardening or visiting grandchildren, or having a purpose to your day. Those are the kind of things that you can initially see slipping. And I actually just wrote a blog about this. The first thing that happens for a lot of people is financial, a hard time managing their own finances. So I think, and that's hard because people don't want to talk about their finances with their kids. But are they missing bills? Are they spending money that they shouldn't be spending on things? Are they, this is when they're very susceptible to scams. So have they been caught by a scam that maybe reached out to them? Those are the kind of non-physical things that you'll see first. Physical things, missing medications, like near falls where they're just kind of tripping over their own feet. Let me think what else. Less cleanliness, like their house isn't as clean as they used to be, and everyone's level of clean is different. Let's start with that. But it's less than they were before. If they start driving, like they have bumps on their car that they don't know how they got there, or bruises or cuts on their body and they don't remember how they got there. That's something to look for. Nutrition, if they're having weight loss, if you see that, or weight gain, where you're asking, like, what'd you have for dinner? And they're like, oh, I was just eating a bowl of cereal and chips, and then I had a piece of cake. Starting to see kind of nutrition decline because it's just not as important to them as it should be. I'm trying to think. Those are early signs. The big sign for a lot of people is they end up in the hospital because of something.
Right. Well, if viewers or listeners, Jen, could take just 3 proactive steps this month to preserve their future care choices, what would you recommend?
First, making sure you have all your paperwork in order, making sure you have power of attorneys written out. And that includes, like, who is helping in different scenarios, who helps get the person to church and fills their spiritual need, who helps do groceries and make sure their nutrition is in order, who's going to doctor's appointments and making sure their medications and knows what their medical conditions are. Making sure that someone's kind of helping in each of those scenarios kind of goes with the paperwork side of it. The hard one is just having the conversation of, like, hey, if you need help in the future, we should probably look into it just in case you ever need it. Let's just look. Let's just talk to someone. Let's see what's out there, I think, is a big one. You said 3. And then I would say connecting with your resources in your area. There's a lot out there. I just reached out and met with the Alzheimer's Association about what they have out there. There's sources like CarePatrol where we can meet with you and learn your personal situation and kind of suggest what needs you could have. Church organizations, the senior groups, the senior resources. I think knowing what's out there is a great way to stay healthy as long as you can.
Yeah, and it's never too early to start, right?
Right.
So, Jenn, I want to thank you, for joining us today. First, though, tell us what your partnership with LTCareNav has meant to you.
I'm really excited about this because we oftentimes are talking about the care needs, the care choices, the moving, but there's a whole other aspect to aging well and making sure that your pieces are all lined up that LTCareNav is covering for us. So being able to know that the family can have those questions addressed and those things answered, and then we can come in for the care side, I think is a great partnership.
Absolutely. And Lindsay, for people watching or listening that may want to partner with LTCareNav, how can they do that?
You can come to LTCareNav.com, and on the top it'll say for providers and professionals, and you can reach out. And, Jenn has been wonderful, as well as all your CarePatrol owners, and we're so glad to be able to have this partnership with them, to be able to help families across the country, because they are so knowledgeable. And as senior care advisors, there really should always be your first step, and it should always be a boots on the ground advisor in your local community. And I love how all of the owners are so inundated and know their communities so well.
Absolutely. And Jenn, as we close, everything's going to be in the show notes for people that want to reach out to you, but how can people reach you?
Our website has a lot of great information. That's carepatrol.com/Denver. You can reach out to our phone number. I want to say 24 hours a day, but we do sleep sometimes. So it's, maybe 12, 14 hours a day, at 720-675-8308, or you can email us at denver@carepatrol.com.
Wonderful. Well, Jenn, Lindsay, thank you both so much for the work that you're doing to help support family caregivers and their loved ones. Look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Thank you.